Hello and welcome to About 6 Acres. I'm Juana.
And I'm Nick.
And today we're going to talk a little more about seed starting for our spring garden.
To recap, we have our seed starting station that we have. It's our grow tent that we use from Vivo Sun that we put all of our seeds in. We have a shelf here that we'll put our seed trays on, along with some LED grow lights. And then we'll have a little individual heater that goes on the bottom to control the temperature. And so this keeps it really humid in here so we can control everything in this little room. But we also have a heater outside in the larger area if we have to change the temperature in the whole building. So this has worked well for the past couple years. But
the first thing that we're going to do is take inventory of our seeds, because we try not to buy additional seeds unless we need them. Right now we have too many seeds, and a lot of the reason for that is because you go through the seed catalog and you're like, oh, that looks cool. Oh, that looks cool. You buy them, but you don't necessarily need them. They're an investment only in the year that you use them. And when you're storing them for an extended period of time, their viability actually decreases. So that's what I mean by it's not an investment. It's something that you buy to use that year, but after that, it really does decrease. Think of seeds as a car. They are not a house. So you don't want to just go out and buy a bunch of seeds that you're not going to use. For us, we try to stick to seeds that we are going to use. But again, you will notice that we did violate that just a tinsy bit.
So this is our seed storage organizer unit. So there's these little, I believe they're just like little craft bins that you can save, and works well to hold the packets of seeds in. So we're just going through. We have some labeled on what they are, but we're gonna look at tomatoes today, probably get those started. But we'll go through. We got some flowers, some peppers, some herbs, and when we save our own seeds as well, we'll dry them out and bring them in here. And most of the time we'll have them in Ziploc bags if we don't have any of these empty bins. But it's time to go through to see what we have and what we want to get started for the spring.
Because we're in Texas and we get hit with heat pretty early, usually April, May, it starts to get really, really hot, and tomatoes are viable. They're at their best when the temperature is what, 70s, 80s? So we try to get the tomatoes going as soon as possible so that they get big and so that they're ready to go the minute that we put them in the ground. And that way we get a nice harvest before the heat sets in and they stop producing much. And then after those temperatures start to go back to normal, then we'll have another flush of tomato harvest, usually around the fall. So that's the reason why we start so early here in Texas. Now, one big tip that I will mention is if you go solely by your zone and by your frost date, you're going to miss out on how your area behaves. We are 8B, which I think there's 8B in South Carolina, but growing in South Carolina is a lot different than growing in North Texas because they don't get the extreme heat. So they're able to really have tomatoes a lot longer than what we have here in Texas. So for us, we follow a few accounts that are based out of our area, and we've learned a lot from them. We also have made friends with local nurseries because they know the area very well. They know the soil very well. So that is one big tip, is to find people in your area that have gardened for a long time, because they'll have a lot of those insights that you definitely want to acquire.
So we're looking through our tomatoes, seeing what seeds we have left. Like our classic beefsteak tomatoes that did well last year. Another one that we tried for the first time was the atomic grape, little snacking tomatoes. Very, very awesome because they start out a little purple and then they go to these red and yellow variegated kinds. The mortgage lifters, those were, produced a lot. And then we had some cherry tomatoes and some sweetie tomatoes that produced later on in the year. So if you're still looking for seeds and haven't purchased any or replenished, Great thing to do is either go online to your local community. Maybe there's a gardening community that's in your area, or your homestead co-op or local nursery. They might have seed swap days where you can go in and bring, maybe you have too many XX seeds of okra and you want to bring those in, you can go and swap for seeds that you need, maybe find something new to plant that year, maybe that a neighbor has done. But yeah, get to know neighbors, get to know people that are growing in your area, and then just ask, hey, can I swap some seeds with you? What worked well with you last year? And you can let them know what worked well and exchange seeds. So we got some loofah seeds that we've exchanged with friends, some different flowers, peas we've gotten, but it's pretty cool to meet new people and see what they've grown. We've met a guy at the seed swap who does all these varieties of hot peppers.
Yeah, so for our tomatoes, I think there's going to be a couple that we're going to order. This Cherokee Purple has definitely been one of our favorites last year. It did so well because it's a hardy tomato, but it grows fairly quickly. We try to save seeds as best that we can, but I don't know that we saved tomato seeds very well last year because I don't see very much here. There's another area that I'm going to check to see if we saved any, but I honestly don't remember saving very many tomatoes. Part of it is I could not remember if very many of them were heirloom, which brings us to the next part of it, which is every time we talk to new gardeners, the advice that we give is keep good records. And this is something that I try to do very well, and every beginning of the season, I'm pretty gung-ho about it. And then the season starts, and I fail pretty good. So this year, and hopefully this video will serve as my accountability. This year, one of the things that I want to do is be better about keeping information and documenting what it is that we have, because like you see, it's not that hard to come in here and be like, oh, Cherokee Purple, it is an heirloom variety. We know we planted this one, but yet this was in here, and last year we didn't save any seeds because we got so busy, and the season really, really takes a toll on us. So keep a good journal of everything going on. As far as what to put in that journal, maybe that's something that we can talk about in a different video, but at the very least, I would keep track of weather conditions, of harvest, of what your plants look like when you start hardening them off, which is basically bringing them outside so they get used to the wind and the real sun and all of that. But also, how much you harvest and even what you do with that harvest. I think that helps a little bit to...
Where you planted them in the beds.
That's a huge one. So labeling them for sure. But I think that helps so much with planning. And again, we were lacking in it.
So very simply, to get started doing seeds, get yourself some good quality seeds that you're going to grow. So grow the things that you're going to eat. Okay, that's super important. And then if you don't know how to plant your seeds, always read the back of the packets. It's got some great information on the depth that your seeds should go into your soil, when you should plant them outdoors, okay, and how much water and sunlight, even when to thin them. So great information on the back of the packets can get you started off on the right foot. And then you need a good seed starting mix. So you want something that's going to be a little bit fluffy and fine, so that's going to be able to get good root development and germination. So this is very fine. It's got some peat moss and perlite in there, but there's no big pieces of debris or wood. One thing that we learned, we made a recipe last year for our seed starting mix, and the material that we had just large pieces of wood and chunks in there that really didn't hold moisture, didn't allow a good germination rate, and really just actually didn't fit in these small cell pots or anything. So it made growing the plants really difficult. So recommend getting something really fine. You're gonna mix it with water. You're gonna make sure that it drains well. So we're gonna use this organic sun-grow seeding mix this year and see how it goes. And then when we have to pot up, we'll change the soil. So we may add some of our own compost into there, as well as some of our native soil mixed into a potting mix. And then of course you need materials to hold your seeds in. You know, we've went the cheap version, you know, when we began and bought these kits and everything from the big box stores, and that's okay. If that's what you can afford and that's what you can have, that's great. But what we noticed is it was hard to transplant or pot up with these things because they're very thin, very flimsy. It was hard to get the plugs and the seeds out when we had to pot up, and we just kept fighting against the materials. So we invested in some very durable seed starting trays and pots from Epic Gardening. So they make these very hard, very durable, these are 16 cell trays, great to start your seedlings in and then potting up. And then these very thick bottom trays that you can actually hold water. So you want to be able to water from the tray and not directly onto there. So we're going to see how well these are going to work, but it makes carrying them out when we have to harden things off a lot easier, because then it's sturdy and it's not flexing and breaking and tearing. And again, just have a place that has ample light to start your seeds. Starting on the kitchen table, starting it indoors, or if you have a little grow area or greenhouse yourself, just make sure it has light and a place to control temperature and a place where you can have access to water, because you want to make sure you water your seedlings well, keep an eye on them, and keep the humidity in the growing area high. You can either put little domes or covers on your seed trays, or if you put them in here, you don't need them. You can just make sure that you're some way to measure your humidity, because again, that's just moisture and staying in there, heating the soil. So you want to make sure you have that. So we've gotten this question a few times on why we like to start growing seeds in smaller cells. So these are individual cells, than starting them in a large pot or in a cup. And the reason is there's just a small amount of soil to seed ratio. So you're going to have more moisture in the soil that's sort of equal around that seed, and it's going to allow that root to develop much faster. There's going to be a more stable temperature in that soil, because there's, again, less volume for it to go through. So it's easier to control, easy to see germination in these small cells. And you can then pot up to a larger size so the roots can develop. So germination rates are usually better in that smaller portion, because again, you retain that heat and you retain that moisture in a smaller volume of soil. So what I'm going to do now is get my seeding mix, get some moisture in there. I'm going to inoculate it. So I'm going to put in some of this mycorrhizae fungus in there. So that way it'll help surround the soil and surround the root and really help healthy root development. So we'll get that started when we mix it in. It's going to mix some water in there and then fill my seed trays and work on our tomatoes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add our seedling mix. We got about 8 quarts here. Dump it in our bucket so we have something that we can mix thoroughly. I'm going to add some water. First, we'll break up any large clumps. Then we have this mixture, so it's really nice and fluffy. Very nice. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to add this mycorrhizae inoculant, again, to help root development on there. And there's directions on what you can put in. Probably just going to put a little scoop into here. But again, it says you can mix with soil or fertilizer, 1 ounce, cover that many square feet, or you can actually toss your seeds in this powder as well. So we'll give it, see it in here, been using it, pretty well. Sprinkle it. And we'll mix that really well. Go ahead and mix very well. Again, break up clumps. And then we'll add a little bit of water, mix again. Add some water. So basically, you don't want it oversaturated, just mix enough to give you a sort of like a wrung out sponge consistency. And this is probably going to need some more water, but almost like your bacon, add a little bit at a time, mix it up, break up those big pieces. So it's pretty much holding together. Just make sure there's no dry spots. Or you can break your pail. All the way at the bottom, mix it well. And once this is mixed well and has a good consistency and holds water, you want to make sure, again, there's no dry spots in there, because it'll allow you, when you water in the bottom of the tray, it'll allow that to evenly be absorbed up through the bottom of the pots. So as these trays sit in, water can easily be absorbed through the material. You want to make sure that everything is wet, because if it's dry, it's going to be harder to get absorbed into there. Let's add a little bit more water. And it's still nice and fluffy. Okay, nice and sort of want that so it's holding its shape. I know some people will actually add to their seed starting mix some worm casting, so I might pick up some worm casting later on when we do maybe our peppers and things, and test that out. Right, just a little bit more water. That should be good. Final mix. And there you go. It's holding in its shape. No excess water really dripping out of there. I think we'll call that good. All right, let's go ahead and add some of our soil to our 16 cell seed starting trays. So it's good to have a table or something to work on. That way you can make a mess and then just scrape things back to where they belong. And then I'll use this sort of to press down again. Making sure that soil goes down to the bottom of the pot. And then we can put our seeds in, and then once we put our seeds in, then we can also, cover it a little bit more. in the bottom. You can sort of see there. See it coming through? Awesome. So I think that's good because then I could start put my seeds in and then just, again, put a little on top and press it down. So we're going to start out with some beefsteak. So these are seeds, a little bit older seeds. So to ensure we have good germination, I'm going to put about 4 seeds per cell because we can always pull out what, just in case something doesn't germinate. But if there's too many in here, we can always, again, trim out or pull out. So I'm going to do about 4 in each little fly.
So what I typically do on my marker is I include whether it's determinate or indeterminate. And indeterminate means that it will have to be trellis, Nick, or what would you call that?
That it will continue to grow. So yeah, it can be trellised. It's good for pruning, so you can prune it back and it'll produce more throughout the season.
Versus a determinate tomato, which is more like a bush, if you will, because you don't necessarily have to trellis it. So I include what that is. I include the brand. So in this case, it was Seeds of Change, and every time I always write it SOS, even though it should be SOC. Let me do that now. Let me fix it. So I include the seed, where we got the seeds from, the name of it. So this is classic beefsteak, and then obviously it's a tomato and the day that we started it. When we pot them up, then I'll include separate markers so that we can keep track of them. But that's what I typically list, and then as we go and pot them up, I'll also include when we potted them up and when we actually put them outside. Now these markers that I have are okay working inside, but last year they did not work very well outside, even though I used the marker that the manufacturer recommended. So I'm still trying to find a good solution for that, but this works for now.
So we got 2 varieties of beefsteak tomatoes in here. One from Seeds of Change, one from Baker Creek. So I got my seeds there, and then I'm just going to put a light layer of the potting mix over it and press it in. I know some people use a little dibber. Sometimes I'll use a pencil, especially for like small seeds. We got our chickens outside. They know we're in here. Like, what are you guys doing? And once we fill all these trays, we'll water from the bottom. So we'll put a little bit of water in here instead of going on the top, because then that can displace some of your seeds, just really make a mess. And then if you water from the top, it's more prone for fungus and things to go wrong. So a little tap, good seed soil contact. Let's see how many of the Cherokee purples we have left. A few seeds. We have our first tray of seed starts. We got different varieties of tomatoes. We got 4 cells. We got some tomatillos, some calendula. We got some lavender, and then we have some chamomile and straw flower. So with some of the flowers that we're seeding, we're experimenting with them to see if they'll work and germinate, especially the lavender and straw flower. And we've had good success with the chamomile and getting those started and then transplanting outdoors. So we like to experiment. Now set these inside of our grow tent, get the light set up and the little heater set up, and then put some water in the bottom of these trays. So we have the seeds that we wanted to get in today: tomatoes, some tomatillos, some flowers. So we got them in our seed tray. We have our LED light on. Got our little heater set to low. It's already 61 degrees inside. So we're gonna add some water into the bottom of that tray. We also put a heat mat underneath to help out. So just gonna add a little water. I'm gonna take one out so I can see what I'm doing. Add a little water. Ooh, that's getting sucked up pretty fast. Let's add some over here. A little more. And we can we'll leave this water inside and then we can close it up. But it's good to have this little thermometer in here as well. And it's Bluetooth, so if we come around near it, we can download it onto our phones. So temperature's going up, we're gonna close it. We'll check how hot it's gonna get on this temperature, so I may have to come in here in the next couple days to be nice and warm. Let's close it up. You can always peek in. So tonight we'll come in, check on the temperature again, make sure that it's doing well and it's not too hot. And looking forward to starting some more seeds probably this weekend or next week. But super excited we got our tomatoes and some flowers started. Again, thank you for joining and watching with us. And remember, you're awesome and you are loved. Till next time.